Rain fell in soft lines across the parking lot, turning the road into a sheet of dark glass. Maya Jackson parked her small sedan under a flickering light, took a breath, and checked the paper slip on her dashboard. The order number was circled in blue pen. She had promised her co-workers she would grab the takeout on her way back from a short errand, and she did not want to be late. Inside the bar, warm yellow light glowed behind the windows. Laughter and a burst of music slipped out each time the door opened. She put up her hood, stepped out, and hurried across the wet concrete, careful to avoid the puddle beside the curb. Inside, the air smelled like grilled onions, pepper, and a hint of wood smoke. The bar was busy but not wild. A couple in work boots and denim shared fries in a corner booth. Two friends leaned over a pool table, chalking their cues. Near the far wall, a group of bikers crowded around a high table, trading stories, clapping one another on the back and trying to outlaugh the jukebox. The music was a classic rock song that most people knew, the kind that made feet tap without asking. Maya pulled down her hood and shook a little rain from the fabric. She wore a simple light jacket over a blouse and straight-leg jeans. On her left shoulder, near the edge of the jacket, the top edge of a tattoo peeked out, the small curve of an eagle's wing and part of a globe. It was an old tattoo, inked years ago, and it carried memories she kept close to her heart. When she walked, she did so with quiet steadiness, shoulders level, her steps neither rushed nor slow. She looked around in a quick, kind way, like someone used to scanning a room for exits and friendly faces at the same time. "Hi there," the bartender said with a tired smile when she reached the counter. He wore a name tag that read, Lewis. "Picking up or dining in?" "Picking up," Maya said. "Order number 12. Luis checked a small printer beside the register. "Got it. 12 is almost ready. Just a few more minutes." He lifted, his chin toward a small queue of paper bags. "We had a rush." "No problem," Maya said. "I'll wait right here." She rested one elbow on the counter and glanced at the TV in the corner, where a silent baseball game played with captions crawling at the bottom. She liked quiet places more than crowded ones, but she knew how to be at ease almost anywhere. She had learned that skill in many rooms, many towns, and a few countries far away. The memory of dusty roads and long blue mornings sometimes drifted into her mind without warning, but it came with a sense of steady pride rather than heavy weight. She touched the paper slip in her pocket. Her team at work, 2 nurses and a radiology tech, had joked that she was the only one organized enough to grab everyone's dinner without mixing up the sauces. She had laughed and said, "Don't test me, I'm good with a checklist." Near the door stood a big man in a dark jacket, hands crossed. He looked like he had carried people out of trouble more than once. The paper sign above his head read, "Please be kind." His name, according to the little tag on his jacket, was Pete. He nodded as new customers walked in and gave a gentle reminder when someone forgot to wipe rain from their shoes on the mat. The owner, a woman in her 40s with a no-nonsense ponytail, moved between tables with a quiet confidence that settled the place. Some called her boss. Others called her Hannah. She refilled water, cleared plates, and noticed when someone needed help before they had to ask. At the high table near the wall, the biker group was hard to ignore, not because they were cruel, but because they were loud and eager to be the center of attention. Their jackets were patched with bright designs that marked clubs and road trips. They thumped the table with laughter. The tallest one, with a chain on his wallet and a wide grin that tried too hard, told a story about a road sign he claimed he had once moved as a prank. His friends roared as if this were the funniest thing they had heard all week. One of them raised a glass and said, "To Friday," and they all cheered. Maya checked her watch and then her phone. A group chat buzzed, "Bring extra ketchup if they have it." She typed on it and added a small smile. She could feel the music through the wooden floor, a gentle thrum that matched the rhythm of the rain on the roof. Luis slid a plate of nachos to a customer and then leaned back to look into the kitchen. 12, he called. "How we doing?" 2 minutes, someone shouted from behind the swinging door. 2 minutes, Luis relayed to Maya, with a small apologetic roll of his eyes. "All good," Maya said. "Thanks." A longtime regular, a quiet older man who always seemed to sit near the end of the bar, took a slow sip of his black coffee, and watched the room with calm eyes. He wore a soft flannel shirt and a cap with a small metal pin on the E side. He seemed like the type who knew when to speak and when silence said enough. He noticed when the jukebox shifted to another song and smiled to himself, a memory tugging at his mouth for a second and then fading. The door opened, and a gust brought in another wave of cool air and the scent of rain. Someone laughed at a joke that probably did not deserve such a big laugh, but Friday has a way of making even small jokes feel bigger. Hannah wiped a ring of condensation from a table and told a small boy to watch his step near the server's lane. The boy nodded and held his mother's hand a little tighter. The mother mouthed a thank you, and Hannah smiled. At the biker table, the tall one, who carried himself like he wanted to be the leader, noticed Maya out of the corner of his eye. Maybe it was the way she stood straight without trying to take up space, or the way she smiled politely and then folded her hands. Maybe it was the tiny bit of ink that showed near her jacket's edge, the sign of a story he did not know. He elbowed the friend beside him and tilted his chin toward the bar. His friend shrugged, but the tall one kept looking, not with simple curiosity, but with the kind of interest that asks for attention, not connection. Louis set a glass of water in front of Maya. "On the house," he said. "Kitchen's hopping." "Thank you," she said and took a small sip. The water was cold and she realized she had been thirsty. She put the glass down with care and stood in a way that left space for other customers to pass behind her. A couple walked by. "Excuse me," she said softly, and they smiled. The tall biker pushed away from his table. He had a showman's walk, shoulders rolling, steps placed to be noticed. He swiped a pool stick from the rack as though he planned to play, then set it back at once, already bored of that idea. He adjusted his leather jacket and looked up at the darts on the wall. Then he looked back at Maya and settled on a new plan: get a quick laugh from his friends. It was not a plan born of deep thought. It was just a habit: seek attention, make noise, be the center. He wandered toward the bar with a casual slowness and a smile that he believed was charming. He leaned an elbow on the counter a few feet from Maya and waited, as if he were considering a drink. His friends watched, expecting something silly and loud. One of them, a little older, shook his head as if to say, "Come on, man, leave it." Pete saw the motion out of the corner of his eye. He shifted his stance not in a hard way, but like a person who has moved furniture enough times to know where it might bump. He did not step in. He did not need to. He only watched. Hannah carried a basket of wings past the bar and set it down before two hungry teens. She smiled at them, then glanced toward the tall biker at the counter. Her smile tightened by one small degree. She did not look worried, only attentive, fixed on the little signals that tell a manager where to be. Maya, unaware of the small web of attention around her, checked the ketchup pump and found small packets in a metal cup. She collected 4 and dropped them into her tote. She was thinking about the long shift her coworkers had just finished, about how the older nurse liked the fries crisp and how the tech always remembered everyone's birthdays. She felt the warm hum of simple teamwork in her chest. Running small, kind errands felt good after a day of larger, heavier tasks. "Busy night," the tall biker said, as if commenting on the weather. "It is," she answered, polite but brief. "Fries are the best thing here," he added. "You got fries in there?" She nodded once, not taking the hook of conversation. "Yes, for takeout." "Takeout," he echoed, with the same cadence someone might use to repeat a word in a language they were trying to learn. He looked at her jacket, then at the little edge of ink on her shoulder. His eyebrows hopped. "Hey, is that a little drawing, or is that the real deal?" Maya glanced at him, then back to the kitchen door, hoping the order would appear. "It's a tattoo," she said softly. "What kind?" he pressed, curiosity mixing with the need to be seen asking. "Looks like a bird." Maya did not mind honest questions when they came from a good place. A lot of people asked about tattoos for friendly reasons, to share stories about their own or to admire the art. This question did not feel like that. It felt like a test, the kind asked loud enough for an audience. She gave a small, neutral smile that could mean yes, no, or please let me be. Then she sipped her water again. From the kitchen, a cook set a paper bag on the hot shelf. "Order 12, he called. Luis reached for it, checked the ticket, and looked toward Maya. "Almost there," he said, lifting a finger. He tucked in extra napkins without being asked. The tall biker shifted closer by a half step, still smiling. "You from around here?" he asked, tone light, but with that edge of teasing that can tilt either way. "I don't think I've seen you in here before." "Just pickin'." Maya moved the warm takeout bag to her left hand so she could open the door with her right. The tall biker shifted a half step more, placing himself between her and the exit in a way that was not loud, but still clear. He smiled as if it was a game. His friends at the high table leaned in, expecting a small show. The jukebox played a steady beat that seemed to slow, though the song did not change. Maya felt the weight of many eyes move toward her, some curious, some careful, and some already ready to help if needed. "Excuse me," Maya said in a calm voice. She kept her words simple. She kept her tone steady. The paper bag crinkled softly, in her hand. "Hold on," the tall biker said, as if he were a gate that needed a password. "What's the rush?" He tried to sound friendly, but there was a push in it, the kind that asks for control. He lifted a finger and made a small circle in the air, as if painting the outline of her jacket. Maya stood with her feet set shoulder-width apart, just like she had practiced years ago when learning how to keep balance in a crowd. She did not step forward, and she did not step back. "Please let me pass," she said. "I have to deliver this food." The tall biker tilted his head, amused. "To who?" he asked, as if the answer belonged to him. He glanced over her shoulder, then back to her face. The smile stayed, but his eyes searched for a reaction. His hand drifted toward the strap of her backpack like a person tapping a doorframe for luck. It looked casual, but there was a small hook in his finger. Maya felt the gentle tug. It was not hard, but it was not kind. The strap pulled against her shoulder and pinched the seam of her blouse. There was a tiny sound, more like a sigh than a rip, and a few people near the bar looked up. Luis saw the motion and set down the drink he was pouring. Hannah's steps slowed again, and she adjusted the tray she carried so her hands would be free. Pete's quiet eyes sharpened. He uncrossed his arms and let them hang at his sides, ready but relaxed. Maya breathed in through her nose and out through her mouth, a small, steady breath. It was the kind of breath she had practiced in long lines, heavy days, and crowded rooms. She lowered her center of gravity a little, keeping the takeout bag safe in her left hand, and turned her right shoulder forward to create space. "Let go, please," she said, and her voice was soft but firm, like a clear line drawn on a map. The tall biker looked back at his friends for approval and got a mix of faces. One friend nodded out of habit. Another watched the floor. A third gave a small frown like, "Not cool." The older biker with the gray at his temples shook his head once, slow and clear. The tall biker saw the shake but pretended not to. He kept his finger looped around the strap for half a second longer, as if trying to decide whether to keep the moment going. Luis spoke in a calm tone that carried across the bar without being loud. "Everything okay over here?" he asked. He didn't bark. He didn't threaten. He just made the air safer. "We're fine," the tall biker said over his shoulder, still smiling. "Just talking." "Let go," Maya said again. And this time there was the smallest steel in it, something solid and unmoving. She did not raise her voice. She did not pull back. She simply made the boundary bright. "I asked you to let go." Her words did something to the room. Conversations paused like a movie on a single frame. The quiet older man at the end of the bar set his coffee down again and folded his hands. His eyes were gentle but focused, the way a person watches a bridge in a storm to see if it will hold. A couple by the booth stopped mid-chew and listened. The little boy near the server's lane whispered to his mom. Hannah put down her tray on a safe surface and stepped closer, her face calm, her hands open. "Hey, Rex," one of the tall biker's friends said at last. The name fell into the space like a small stone. "Come on, man." So his name was Rex. The sound of it seemed to pull his attention for a moment. He blinked and looked down at his hand like he had just noticed it. He loosened his finger from the strap, but did not move away. "I was just messing around," he said, as if that cleared everything. "It's not funny," the older friend told him in a low voice. "Leave it." Rex's smile wavered. He did not like to be told what to do by his own crew, not in a room where he liked to feel big. He looked back at Maya, searching her face for something he could turn into a joke. But Maya's face was steady and kind. She looked grounded, like a person who had stood outside in wind and learned not to sway. There was no show in her eyes, no anger looking for a target, only a small, clear line that said, "This is the boundary, miss," Hannah said as she reached them, her voice warm and professional. "Do you need help getting to the door?" "I'd like to pass," Maya said. "I asked him to let go. He let go." "Good," Hannah replied. She shifted her stance so she now stood at Maya's side but a little behind, like a quiet escort. To Rex, she said, "We keep this place safe for everyone. No blocking, no grabbing." Rex put his hands up in a playful show. "I didn't grab," he said. "It was just a little touch. We're all friends here." He grinned again, trying to bring back the earlier mood. But the room was not there with him anymore. It had moved to a different place where words like just and little sounded small next to respect. Maya looked at the path to the door. She could step forward now, and a part of her wanted to go and be done. But another part of her knew that sometimes it is important to say one more sentence so the lesson stays in the air after she leaves. She chose simple words. "I don't know you," she said to Rex. "Don't touch my things, please let people move." Rex opened his mouth to say something clever, but nothing came. The clever words had left him, and in the space they left behind, something else came in. A flicker of embarrassment. He turned his head to find support from his friends, and he found only a mix of flat looks and quiet warning. Even the ones who liked to cheer for him looked away. The older biker with gray at his temples was not smiling. He lifted his chin at Rex and said, quiet enough that only their table heard, "End it." Pete stepped closer by a few feet, not towering, not pressing, only present. He had a steady way of standing that made the floor feel level. Maya noticed him and felt the small comfort that comes when good people align without a script. Luis put a napkin dispenser in place on the bar, not because it needed to be there, but because it gave his hands a job while he watched. The little boy near the server's lane looked up at his mom, who watched Maya with a small proud look as if to say, "This is how a person stands tall without being unkind." Rex's eyes moved to Maya's shoulder and caught the small curve of ink again. It bothered him for a reason he did not understand. He did not like mysteries that he could not turn into jokes. "So," he said, fishing for something to say, "is that tattoo one of those, little bird ones? Or is it like a team logo? You play a sport?" Maya did not answer the question. She did not owe him a story. She kept her eyes on his. Not hard, not soft, just true. "Move, please," she said. It was the third time she asked, and in that third time lived a quiet power. A picture came back to her from years ago. A hallway full of noise, a door at the end, and an instructor saying, "Use your words first, and use them well. Words are tools. Use the best tool for the job." Rex held her gaze longer than he meant to. He felt himself set down his own inner noise for a second and listen. It was new, and he did not like the feeling of listening because it meant he was not in charge. He shifted his weight and stepped aside an inch, but he kept his mouth working, looking for a line that would get him back on top of the moment. "You don't have to be so serious," he muttered, still trying to fill the air. Hannah gave him a quiet look that was all business. "You heard her," she said. "Make space." He stepped back the rest of the way. The path was clear now, and the air felt a shade lighter. Maya nodded to Hannah in thanks and took one step forward, then stopped. Something in the seam of her blouse caught at her skin, a light brush where the fabric had been stressed. It was small and private, and she did not touch it, but she noticed it. She thought of people in many places who have felt small pulls like that, little signs that a moment could have gone another way. She felt a warm wave of care for those people, seen and unseen, and she hoped this room would learn a better way to be. The older man at the end of the bar, the one with the cap and the calm eyes, raised his coffee cup a tiny bit, a small salute meant only for her. It said, in a language without words, "I see you." Maya gave him the faintest nod back. It said, "Thank you." Luis cleared his throat and spoke lightly to smooth the edges. "Hey, folks," he called to the whole room, not to one person. "We got a fresh batch of wings coming out, and the cook says the cornbread is singing tonight." A few people chuckled at the phrase, even though they knew cornbread does not sing. But the line did what it needed to do. It nudged the room toward normal again. Rex stood where he was, unsure of his next move. His friends did not clap him on the back. Instead, the man with gray at his temples leaned in and said, "You can be better." The words were not sharp, but they had weight. They put a mirror in front of Rex without making a scene. Maya let out another slow breath, the kind that puts the mind back in order. She took 2 steps toward the door. The music picked up, not louder but clearer, as if a fog had lifted off the notes. The rain outside ticked on like a clock, keeping its own time. Her hand reached for the door handle. Before she pushed it, rain misted across the windshield as Maya pulled out of the parking spot. The wipers drew 2 clean arcs and paused. She rested her hands on the wheel for a moment and listened to the soft tick of the engine. The takeout bag sat safely in the tote on the passenger seat, and the sauces were tucked in like small treasures. She could leave now. She could drive back to her co-workers and hand them hot food with a smile, but then she heard a muffled shout through the rain, her name carried as a careful call, not a demand. "Maya!" It sounded like Luis. She glanced in the rearview mirror. The bar door swung open, and warm light spilled onto the wet ground. Luis trotted out with a small paper sack in his hand, one she did not remember seeing before. He waved it once over his head like a flag. Behind him, the door caught on a gust and stayed half open. People at the front turned to look out at the rain. Maya shut off the engine, took the keys, and stepped into the cool air. The awning gave a thin shelter. The rain here was more like a fine spray. She met Luis halfway. He was breathing a little fast, but his grin was easy. "Almost forgot," he said, handing her the extra sack. "Cornbread." The kitchen made a fresh pan and said to send some love out the door. "You didn't have to," Maya said, surprised and touched. "We wanted to," Luis said. "Consider it a Friday win." He looked at her for a beat, as if checking that she was truly okay. She gave him a calm, steady nod. He nodded back, satisfied, and turned to head in. At that same moment, a couple of people stepped outside for a breath of air. The rain had slowed to a soft whisper, and the night felt clean. Rex came out with 2 of his friends, his laughter quieter than before, like someone trying to find the right volume again. He pushed the door wider and held it for the older friend with gray at his temples. The older man gave a small thanks and moved off to the side under the awning. The older regular from the end of the bar also stepped to the doorway. He held his coffee like a small candle against the dark. Pete stood just inside with his usual calm shape, and Hannah paused a few steps back, scanning the room but aware of the doorway scene. Maya adjusted the tote on her shoulder to make room for the new sack. As she did, her light jacket slid just a bit from her right shoulder. It was an easy, ordinary movement, nothing dramatic, but the fabric's edge dropped enough to show the full shape of the ink that had lived on her skin for years. The eagle with spread wings, the globe held close, and the small anchor that rooted the image in meaning. The lines were clean and a little faded by time. In the glow from the door, the tattoo caught a soft shine, like a memory coming clear. Conversations that were already quiet dipped into a softer gear. The older regular did not move his eyes away, but his hand lifted the coffee cup in the smallest salute. Rex, still holding the door, saw the ink and froze without meaning to. His mouth was half open, as if a word had stopped before it formed. One of his friends whispered, "Marine Corps." The words were more breath than sound, and yet they carried. The older friend with gray at his temples gave a slow nod, as if a puzzle piece had slipped into place. He looked at Rex, then at Maya, and then back at Rex, and the look said, "Now you know." Maya felt the night change its shape by a hair. It was not fear and not anger that moved across the faces around her. It was recognition. She had seen that look in airports and grocery stores and sometimes at gas stations when a simple hat or a small pin spoke a story without a speech. She did not reach to cover the tattoo. She did not show it on purpose either. It was simply part of her, like her voice and the way she stood in a doorway without rushing. Louis sensed the shift and paused with his hand on the door, torn between going in and staying out. Hannah decided for him with a glance. She stepped forward until she stood just inside the frame, present but not pressing. Pete, already there, angled so his stance watched the room and the night at once. Rex's voice came back to him in a small start. You served?" The question was simple. It had no joke in it. He did not know what else to say. Maya kept her tone the same as it had been all evening. Calm, clear, kind. "I did," she said. "I'm just here for dinner." There was a brief flicker in Rex's eyes, something like a window opening. The noise that usually filled his head took a step back, leaving space for a new thought. He had not expected the person he tried to tease to be a veteran. He had not expected the older man at the end of the bar to treat her like family with a lift of a cup. He had not expected himself to feel small in a way that was not about shame but about honesty. The older regular touched 2 fingers to the brim of his cap and said in a low voice that carried warmth, "Respect." It was only one word, but it arrived with the weight of roads traveled and names remembered. Rex dropped his eyes to the concrete for a heartbeat. When he looked up, his voice was softer. "I messed up inside," he said. "I thought I was being funny." He swallowed. "I wasn't." Maya did not make him twist in his own words. "You can make it right by giving space and being kind," she said. "Not just to me, to anyone." Rex nodded. The nod was not big. It did not ask for a medal. It was the nod of a person who hears a clear instruction and chooses to follow it. His 2 friends stood still beside him, quiet. The older friend with gray at his temples exhaled. Some of the tightness in his mouth eased. Hannah spoke from the doorway, her voice cool and steady. "This place respects everyone," she said. "That's how we do it." She did not lecture. She did not point. She simply placed the rule in the air like a sign you cannot miss. Maya adjusted her jacket, not to hide the tattoo, but to draw the edge up so the night air would not chill. Her shoulder. She turned to Luis. "Thank you for bringing this out," she said, and lifted the small paper sack he had delivered. "Please thank the kitchen." "They'll be glad," he said, relief in his smile. Pete let his eyes circle the scene one last time. He seemed to measure the posture of each person, the distance between them, and the shape of the night. Everything was steady now, like a table with 4 even legs. Rex took his hand off the door and held it out a little, as if he might be asking to shake hands, but he did not force the gesture. He simply left his hand available, and then let it fall when he realized a handshake was not needed to prove anything. "I'm sorry," he said, this time with the full words. "For inside, for blocking you." He took a breath that sounded like he had been holding it all night. "You shouldn't have had to ask 3 times. "Thank you for saying that," Maya said. "Be better next time. That's all." A light laugh came from somewhere behind. The door, the kind of laugh that belongs to a joke about a TV show or a dog that ate someone's socks. The normal sounds of the bar began to fill the doorway again. Forks on plates, a chair sliding, the jukebox restarting a new track. The tiny freeze around the awning thawed. The older regular finally stepped forward a half step, not to crowd, but to place his voice in the circle. "My brother served," he said to no one and to everyone at once. "We were both young once. We made choices, some we kept, some we fixed." He looked at Rex with kind eyes that did not excuse but did invite. "Fix this one by how you act next." Rex nodded again. "Yes, sir," he said without thinking about the sir. He looked almost surprised to hear himself say it, and then a little relieved. Hannah gave a small nod too, as if stamping an approved form. "We're going to post a clear note inside," she said to Pete, to Louise, to the night. "No blocking, no touching without consent, it's simple." She looked at Maya. "Thank you for being clear." Maya smiled, and the smile reached her eyes. "Thank you for being present," she replied. She turned slightly to go, then paused and looked at Rex one last time. "Remember," she said, "respect does not depend on a tattoo." The line landed gently but firmly, like a book placed square on a table. Rex felt it settle in. He glanced at his friends. One gave him a short, encouraging nod that meant, "We got you. Do the right thing." "Ma'am," Rex said, choosing the word carefully and meaning it. "Have a good night." "You too," Maya answered. She walked to her car in the thin rain, the tote snug against her side, the extra cornbread tucked safe in the top. The pavement gave off that clean after-rain smell that always made her think of mornings on base before the day began, or of early runs when the world was quiet and honest. She opened the car door and placed the food carefully. Before she got in, she looked back once more. Under the awning, the small group had broken apart into normal shapes again. Rex spoke quietly to his older friend. His hands were still, not jumping with noise. The older friend nodded, said a few words, and patted his shoulder once. Luis had already slipped back inside, and through the door Maya could see him laughing with a customer in a warm, everyday way. Pete adjusted the mat by the entrance with 2 neat kicks of his shoe, the way a careful person makes a doorway right. Hannah posted a temporary handwritten sign on the wall by the counter that read, in simple letters, "Respect all. Give space. No exceptions." The older regular lifted his cup one last time toward the dark lot, a tiny gesture that was more for himself than for anyone else. Maybe he thought of names that were not spoken tonight but were always present for him. Maybe he thought of the long road of a life where a person keeps learning how to be kind. Maya slid into the driver's seat and closed the door. The quiet of the car wrapped around her, soft and complete. She took on the same easy rhythm as Maya's car smelled like warm food and rain when she pulled into the hospital lot. Inside the staff lounge, the nurses cheered softly when she came in with the bags. The radiology tech made a small happy noise at the sight of extra sauces. "You are a hero," he said with a grin. "I'm just the driver," Maya answered, smiling. She did not tell the whole story. She only said the bar was busy, the staff was kind, and the people were normal Friday night people doing normal Friday night things. She set the cornbread in the middle of the table. The older nurse broke off a small corner, tasted it, and closed her eyes like someone listening to a favorite song. "Perfect," she said. After everyone had their food and the room quieted into the friendly silence of people eating, Maya stepped into the hall and texted a quick note to the bar. "Thank you for the extra cornbread and for being present." "Maya." A minute later her phone buzzed. It was Hannah. "Thank you for speaking clearly. Stop by tomorrow if you can. We're posting new house rules. No pressure, just sharing." Maya looked at the message for a moment. Her shoulders relaxed. She wrote back, "I'll drop a thank you card." The next day was cool and bright, with clean air and high clouds that moved like ships. Maya parked a short walk away and took a plain card from her glove box. She wrote a few lines in simple handwriting. "Thank you for being calm, for listening, and for making the room safe. Kindness is strength." She signed her name and slipped the card into an envelope. It was early afternoon. The bar was open but not busy. Just a few locals, a couple having a late lunch, and the familiar older regular at his end seat with black coffee and a newspaper he mostly folded and unfolded. Luis wiped the counter with steady circles. Pete, by the door, greeted a delivery driver with a nod. Hannah was at the far wall centering a new white sign in a frame. The letters were bold and simple. "Respect all. Give space. No touching without consent. Zero tolerance." Maya stepped in. The room felt like morning after a storm. Orderly, fresh, a little more awake than usual. Hannah saw her and smiled. "You did not have to come," she said, meeting her halfway. "I wanted to," Maya replied, handing over the card. Hannah took it with both hands, as if accepting an award, and set it by the register. "Thank you," she said. "We had a staff huddle this morning. We practiced words. Make space. Do you need help? This room respects everyone. We'll keep practicing." Luis set 2 cups on the counter. "Coffee?" he asked. "On the house." "Half cup," Maya said. "I'm driving later." The door opened, and in came 3 members of the biker group. They walked slower than last night, like people stepping into a library. Rex was with them. He did not bounce, he did not spread his arms wide. He removed his sunglasses as soon as he crossed the threshold and held them carefully in one hand. He saw Maya, stopped, and looked at the floor for a second. Then he looked up. "Good afternoon," he said. His voice was even. He seemed to taste the words first to make sure they were right. "Good afternoon," Maya said. Rex took one more step, but not too close. He placed his hand on the back of a chair like a person anchoring himself to a small, harmless thing. "I wanted to say sorry again," he said. "Not just in the doorway last night, properly, in full, I was wrong." Maya nodded once. "Thank you," she said. "I accept the apology." Rex waited, as if there should be more. When more did not come, he let out a breath. "I've been thinking," he said, a little surprised maybe to hear himself say it. "I am louder than I need to be. I want to be a good guest anywhere I go. Yesterday, I was not." The older regular folded his newspaper and set it down. He did not interrupt. He just made his attention visible. Luis stepped back a pace to give the moment space. Pete looked on with his steady guard energy that somehow made everything feel gentle. Maya spoke in her same simple way. "Thank you for saying it plainly," she said. "I want to add one thing, if that's okay." "Please," Rex said. "Respect should not depend on a tattoo, a jacket, a uniform, or a title," she said. "It should be the starting point for everyone in this room, and for anyone who enters. Sometimes small things, blocking a path, touching a strap, crowding a space, feel big to the person on the other end. You can't always know what someone carries. So it's best to choose kindness first." Rex listened without moving. The word settled. His face changed, not in a dramatic way, but like a light turning from bright to warm. "I hear you," he said. "I will do better." The older regular slid off his stool and walked over with his coffee. Up close, his eyes were kind and a little wet at the edges, the way some eyes are when old names sit close to the surface. "Thank you for your service," he said to Maya, soft and sincere. Then he turned to Rex. "Son, respect is not optional," he said. "I lost friends. I carry them with me every day. We don't get to be careless with people." Rex nodded. "Yes, sir," he said. The sir sounded natural now. He looked at Maya again. "Do you need me to say this in front of everybody?" he asked. "I can. I should." Maya looked around. There were not many people in the room, but the idea mattered. "Say it to the room," she said. "It teaches." Hannah gave a small hand wave, and Luis silenced the music. The couple at the far table looked up. Pete stood where he was, calm as ever. Rex cleared his throat. "Everyone," he said, not loud, just clear. "I want to say I was wrong yesterday. I blocked someone and touched something that wasn't mine. It wasn't a joke. It wasn't small. I'm sorry, I'm going to be better. I asked the same from my friends." He looked at his 2 buddies. They each said, "We're with you," without show. The couple nodded. The older regular touched his cap. Hannah lifted the corner of the new white sign to press a final piece of tape flat, almost like a tiny ceremony. Luis turned the music back on, lower than before, as if letting the room breathe. Maya took a sip of coffee. It was strong and honest. She set the cup down, then looked at the counter. A small glass jar sat near the register with a handwritten label, "Community Fund." Local Veteran Center. The jar was new. A few bills and coins already waited inside like seeds. We started that this morning, Hannah said, noticing her glance. Not to say respect has to be paid for, she added quickly, but because giving also teaches. We'll match what comes in each week. Luis nodded. We already have a friend at the center, he said. He pointed his thumb at the older regular. He promised to introduce us. The older regular smiled. I'll walk you in like family, he said. They have a Saturday repair day coming up. They fix bikes, wheelchairs, even old radios. Good hands are useful. Rex shifted his weight and found a steady stance. Can we help? He asked. He looked at his friends. We know tools. Hannah glanced at Pete, then back at Rex. Yes, she said. Help matters. We'll put the date on the door. Maya listened and felt a small, warm change inside her chest. This was what growth looked like. Quiet, steady, useful. She did not need speeches. She liked plans. Also, Hannah said, tapping the white sign, we wrote down our house words. We'll keep practicing them. If any staff member hears someone say, "Excuse me," and sees the path blocked, we step in. If anyone is touched, without an invite, we step in. If someone needs help across the room, we step in. We're going to set a tone. Pete spoke for the first time, voice low and friendly. We ran a drill, he said. I stood in the spot by the bar. Luis walked, past. Hannah said, make space so folks can move. We practiced until it sounded natural. We'll do it again next week. Rex almost smiled. Drills, he said. I could use a few of those. Maya nodded. Drills make things automatic, she said. Then kindness shows up even when you're tired. A teenager came in with her dad to order 2 burgers to go. The girl stopped at the sign and read it out loud, smiling. Respect all, she said. I like that. The dad looked grateful without words. He placed his order, then rested a hand near the jar and dropped in a folded bill. The sound of paper against glass was very soft and very good. Maya finished her half cup of coffee and placed a few bills under the saucer. Thank you for this, she said to Hannah and Luis. For everything. Thank you for being steady, Hannah said back. It helped us be steady too. Rex stepped aside, giving Maya a clear path without needing to be told. He also moved one of the chairs back under a table to open more space. It was a small act, but it was right. As Maya passed, he said, I will see you at the repair day if you go. I might, Maya said. If I do, I'll bring cookies. Rex gave a quick, genuine laugh, the kind that does not ask for attention. Deal. Outside, sun touched the wet streaks on the sidewalk and turned them to light. Maya paused near the door to breathe the clean air. Pete adjusted the mat as he always did and held the door in an easy way that felt like hospitality and not like watching. Behind her, the room shifted back into life, now with a stronger frame. A few hours later, the bar got its usual late afternoon bump. A group of co-workers came in talking about a big project. A young couple argued in quiet voices about toppings and then laughed at themselves and ordered both. 2 friends met up after a shift and sat by the window in comfortable silence. The new sign looked like it had always belonged there. Midway through the rush, a man accidentally backed his chair into the aisle and blocked the path. A woman approached, with a tray. Before she even said, "Excuse me," one of the co-workers at the table said, "Hey buddy, slide in, let her through." The man flushed, smiled, and moved. "Thanks," the server said. The moment was quick, light, easy. 2 Saturdays later, the morning air was bright and gentle, and the parking lot of the local Veterans Center looked like a friendly workshop. Folding tables lined the sidewalk. A banner hung from the rail, Community Repair Day, all welcome. People carried small machines and broken things from their cars, wheelchairs with squeaky wheels, a radio that would not turn on, a lamp with a shy bulb, 2 bikes with tired chains. The older regular from the bar stood by the entrance with a clipboard, greeting everyone like family. He wore the same cap with the small pin and poured hot coffee from a thermos into little cups as if it were a blessing. Rex arrived with two of his friends. They came early, tools in hand, sleeves rolled, faces set to work. They did not swagger. They did not stand in the middle. They moved to the side table, laid out wrenches and oil, and asked where they were needed. The older regular pointed them to the bike corner. Chains, brakes, simple fixes, he said. Make things quiet and safe. Maya showed up a little later with a tin of cookies she had promised. She wore a light sweater and a calm smile. When she set the tin on the snack table, a small cheer went up because word had spread about her cookies, even though no one had tasted them yet. She laughed and put out napkins. A kid on a small bike, the kind with training wheels, looked at the cookie tin like it held the moon. After your tune-up, his mom told him. He nodded very seriously. The work began in a steady rhythm. Rex leaned over a bike and spun the wheel. He listened for a rub, found it, and fixed it with a tiny turn. He cleaned a chain until it shone, and then showed the little boy how to pedal backward and test the brakes. Try it, Rex said. The boy tried. The brakes grabbed with a satisfying little hush. The boy's smile lit the corner. His mom mouthed, "Thank you," with grateful eyes. Maya joined a small group inside where a volunteer used careful hands to adjust a wheelchair footrest. She held a set of screws and passed them one by one as needed. The room smelled like metal, coffee, and good plans. The older regular moved between rooms, taking notes, offering jokes that were gentle and wise, and telling little stories about how things worked. He had a way of making everyone feel like they were the right person for the job in front of them. When the radio finally sang again, the whole table cheered. Someone tuned it to an old station that played songs with kindly bones. A woman with a repaired lamp blinked back happy tears when the shade glowed warm for the first time in months. "It was my mother's," she said. "Thank you." The volunteer who fixed it only shook his head and said, "We just brought back what was already there." At noon, Hannah and Luis arrived from the bar with a cooler and brown bags. "Lunch delivery," Hannah announced, smiling. "Sandwiches and fruit. We packed extra sauces because someone in this town is famous for requesting sauces." Luis laughed and lifted the cooler onto the table. When people reached for food, Hannah made sure the older regular got a cup of ice water first, the way you thank the person who holds a door for the whole block. Pete came too, in his off-duty jacket. He helped carry boxes without anyone asking, then took a quiet place by the entrance, greeting newcomers with that steady way of his that made the doorway feel good. During lunch, people stood in little circles talking about easy things. No one gave speeches. No one tried to be the star of the day. The work was the star. The little boy rode his tuned-up bike in a careful rectangle on the sidewalk and waved. Each time he passed the snack table, Maya handed cookies to a woman who said she had not had a homemade one in years. The woman took a bite and laughed with surprise. "It tastes like a summer I remember," she said. Maya smiled and said, "Then it is a good cookie." Rex finished his sandwich and wiped his hands. He looked at the older regular and said, "Thank you for letting us help." The older regular tipped his cap. "This center belongs to all of us," he said. "Helping proves it." He looked at Rex not as a judge, but as a neighbor, and added, "You keep showing up like this, and the person you're trying to be will catch up to you." The afternoon settled into more tasks. A teen brought in a bent wheel and learned how to true it with tiny turns. A veteran who had trouble with stairs tried out a small ramp someone built in the woodshop and nodded with relief. A nervous dog sat by a chair, and after an hour of gentle hands nearby, fell asleep in a perfect curl. When the sun angled low and shadows turned long, the tables emptied and people hugged or shook hands in the easy way new friends do. The older regular wrote down a list of parts to order for next time. He set the clipboard aside and poured the last coffee with a small, content sigh. That evening, the bar felt like a good living room. The new sign on the wall looked like it had always rested there. The small jar by the register held more bills and coins than before. Someone had placed a thank you note beside it. "You fixed my wheelchair brake. I rolled in the park today, bless you." Luis tucked the note into a little frame so it would not get splashed. Maya came in to pick up a small dinner for herself. She did not wear her jacket this time. The night was warm. The tattoo showed on her shoulder without ceremony. It looked like what it was, lines that marked a part of a life, neither louder nor quieter than her voice. Conversations did not stop. They adjusted a little, the way music does when a better harmony appears. Rex saw her from across the room. He did not rush. He finished his sentence, stood up, and walked over with his hands empty. "Evening," he said. "Evening," she said. "I want to cover your order," he said. "Not to make up for anything, because I know that's not how it works. Just because I can, and because I want to honor you and the kindness you gave." By being clear. Maya thought for a second, then nodded. "Thank you," she said. "That's a good way to put it." Luis packed her order and added a small square of cornbread, the last piece from the tray. He slid it in with a wink. "It sings tonight too," he said. She laughed. Hannah wiped the counter near the register and looked around the room like a captain at the end of a good day. Pete shifted a chair to open a wider path, more out of habit than need, and the movement made 3 other people notice and adjust their chairs too. The room seemed to move as one, small, kind, inch by inch. At the end of the bar, the older regular raised his coffee to Maya with that same gentle salute as before. She lifted her bag in return. "Come sit for a minute," he called. She did. They talked about small towns, about how rain makes everything honest, about the way a room teaches itself to be better if you give it the right words. He told her a short story about his brother, and she told him a small memory from a dawn run years ago when she had watched the sky change color and felt proud to belong to something larger than herself. A new group came in, a mix of friends, in bright jackets loud with weekend energy. One bumped a chair into the aisle. Before anyone asked, he pulled it back and said, "Sorry, make space." His friend pointed at the white sign on the wall and read it out loud with a smile. "Respect? All," she said. "Okay, room, we see you." They ordered food and then took a picture by the dartboard, careful not to step in front of anyone carrying trays. The bar hummed, and the note under the hum was steady and kind. Later, a woman in her 50s came up to the counter and said, to Hannah, "I heard what you folks did with the house rules. I feel safer here." Hannah thanked her and said safety was the point. The woman put a few bills in the jar and tapped the glass. "For the center," she said. "For the small, good things." Maya finished a glass of water and stood to leave. As she walked toward the door, Rex moved a chair aside without being told, and 2 men at a table echoed, "Make space," almost in unison, then laughed at the timing. Pete touched the door and held it in that easy doorman way that felt like a gentle handshake with the room itself. Warm night air met Maya at the threshold. It smelled like summer and clean sidewalks. Outside, the street was simple and good. Cars passing, a bus sighing at a stop, a dog walker waving, a couple sharing a quiet joke. Maya paused under the sign that hung near the door. "Thank you for being here." She looked back through the window. Inside, the older regular folded his newspaper and smiled. Luis poured iced tea for a table. Hannah wrote the date for the next repair day on the chalkboard with steady letters. Rex helped a new arrival find a seat that left a clear path for others. The room did not cheer itself. It did not need to. It simply kept its promise in the small choices that make a place feel like home. Maya walked to her car with an easy step. Her phone buzzed. A message from a nurse friend read, "How was your Saturday?" She typed back, "Good work, good people, good cookies." Then she added, "A room can learn." It made her smile to send that. She unlocked the car, placed her meal on the seat, and sat for a moment with the window open. The air moved like a calm hand over water. On the dashboard, the thank you card she had written for the bar peeked out of her tote, and she thought about the words again. Kindness is strength. She believed it more now than ever. She thought about the first night, the small tug on her strap, the quiet line she drew with her words, the way the room had paused and then chosen. She thought about Rex's apology, not rushed, not loud, just true. She thought about the older regular's soft word, respect, and how that one word had done a lot of work with no push at all. She started the engine, checked her mirrors, and pulled into the slow flow of evening traffic.